Let's practice representing and plotting integers on a number line together. In each of these practice problems, we're going to go ahead and write the integer that represents each situation, and then we're going to go ahead and plot it on a number line. And when we're plotting it on a number line, we're going to make sure that we use a reasonable scale factor, so we're not writing too many little tick marks all over that number line. All right, so for number one, we have a debt of $17. Now, keep in mind that this vocabulary word of debt means that we are owing money, so that's going to be negative. So when we write this integer down, that's just going to be a negative 17. That's the number that represents a debt of $17. All right, so going ahead and plotting this on a number line, since we're dealing with a negative number, we can just go ahead and put 0 over here all the way to the right side, because we don't have to deal with anything that's positive. So when plotting this negative 17, let's go ahead and maybe jump by 5s to make our lives a little bit easier. So this could be negative 5, this could be negative 10, maybe negative 15, and then negative 20. All right, so where are we going to plot this negative 17? I think that's going to be roughly between, well, it's definitely between negative 15 and negative 20, but it's going to be closer to negative 15. So this would be where we would plot negative 17, or a debt of $17. For number two, we have 8 degrees above 0. Now, if it's above 0, that means it's going to be a positive value. So if we're going to go ahead and write the integer of positive 8, we just have to write 8. Don't put the plus sign. Now, for plotting this on a number line, let's go ahead and put 0 all the way to the left, since we're dealing with a positive 8. And maybe you can jump by, I don't know, 2's here, right? So we can go 2, and then 4, and then 6, and then 8. So we're going to go ahead and plot that on this number line, then 8 is going to be over here to the right of 0 because it's above 0 to the right. For number 3, we have 14 degrees below 0. Now below 0 is different than above 0, so that's actually going to be negative because it's going to be colder. For this integer, we're going to go ahead and say it's going to be negative 14, or the opposite of 14. Since we're dealing with a negative integer, this negative 14, let's go ahead and put 0 all the way to the right side. And to get to negative 14 a little faster, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump by negative 4. So if I jump 4 down, that's negative 4. If I jump another 4, that's going to be negative 8. If I jump another 4, that's going to be negative 12. If I jump another 4, that's going to be negative 16. Now, where's negative 14 going to go? Well, negative 14 is going to fit right between this negative 12 and negative 16, because 14 is right between 12 and 16. So that's where negative 14 would be located. For number 4, we have a deposit of $27. So a deposit means that we're putting money into the bank. So for your bank account, that's going to go up, right? That's what that positive 27 represents. So to write the integer that represents a deposit of $27, that's just going to be positive 27. If you deposit $27 into your bank account, that means it goes up by 27, or a positive 27. Now we're dealing with a positive integer, so let's go ahead and put 0 all the way to the left because we don't need to deal with any negative numbers. And let's just go ahead and jump by 9s to make this easier. So let's go from 0 to 9. 9 plus 9 is 18, plus another 9, that's going to be 27. So these are just some multiples. And 27, we can go ahead and put a dot right on that 27 and call it a day. For number 5, we have a withdrawal of $13. So if we withdraw money from a bank account, then we are taking money out of our bank account. The integer that's going to represent that is going to be a negative 13, or the opposite of 13. Remember, the opposite of putting $13 into your bank account would be taking $13 out of your bank account, so that's going to be negative. Now, plotting this on a number line, we're dealing with a negative integer, so let's go ahead and put 0 all the way to the right side here. And if we need to get to negative 13, maybe we can jump by, maybe let's go by negative 4s here. So let's go with negative 4, and then maybe go with negative 8, because that's 4 less. Let's go 4 less again, that's negative 12. And then 4 less again, that would be negative 16. Now, where would negative 13 go in here? Well, negative 13, just estimating, is going to go pretty close to negative 12 if we're comparing between negative 12 and negative 16. So that's a pretty good estimate. For number 6, we have 25 degrees below 0. Okay, so if it's below 0 degrees, that's going to be extra cold. That's going to be negative. So the integer here is just going to be negative 25. Putting this on a number line, we know we're dealing with a negative integer, negative 25, so let's put 0 all the way to the right side. And let's just jump by, I don't know, jump by negative 10s here. So let's call this negative 10, and then we can call this one negative 20. And then finally, I'll call this last one negative 30. right? Because this is a little bit easier, because if we put negative 25 on here, that just has to be right between negative 20 and negative 30, and we don't have to write too many of these lines along the way. Next, for number 7, we have 582 meters, and this is going to be above sea level, right? Now, if it's above sea level, it's going to be higher up, so that's going to be positive as opposed to negative. So it's going to be a positive integer of 582, not negative 582. That would be below sea level. Plotting this on a number line, we have a very big positive integer here, so we don't need anything negative. There's going to be 0. Maybe let's just go by 100s here. So this would be 100, and then this would be 200. Over here we could say this would be 300. Then we could do 400, 500, and finally 600. Right? So this could be an example of how to space these out. And if we're trying to plot 582, that's going to be really close to 600. Again, we're estimating here, but the whole idea is plotting where this point would be roughly, and it is definitely between 500 and 600, closer to the actual 600. Finally, for number 8, we have 38 feet below sea level. So below sea level, that's going to be underwater. That's going to be negative. So the integer here is just going to be negative 38. Plotting this on a number line, we have a negative integer, so we don't need any positive values. Let's go ahead and put a 0 all the way to the right side. And for negative 38, maybe I'll go by 10s here. So let's make this negative 10, and then go by another 10, that's going to be negative 20. Let's go to negative 30, and then finally negative 40. Okay, so I think that's a good number to kind of skip count by, because negative 38 would be maybe roughly here, right? Definitely between this negative 30 and negative 40, but closer to the negative 40. Okay, so there you have 8 different practice problems on using maybe some vocabulary that are more application-based that you might see in the real world, like maybe bank accounts, withdrawals, deposits, debits or credits, things like that. And we have some debt here, as well as some temperatures and elevation. So hopefully you found this video helpful. As always, keep up the great work, and I'll see you in the next one.